If, in the absence of a Common Core coordinator, how do you feel about creating teams with stipend teachers to facilitate the implementation of Common Core?
Teams of throughout the schools, from a grade level. Did you have anything?
Well, I would think, for you, it would be at your school. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I mention that is I've talked to a lot of teachers, and I'm not an educator, and I don't play one on TV. But the idea that they are the closest to the education process, and that a school inherently has an educated workforce, many master's degree people serving as teachers. So, and the implementation of this Common Core, the implementation of it being a temporary situation, that once it's implemented, we won't be implementing. So, my thought is, particularly, again, going back to the fact that we're in the middle of teachers' contracts, and stipends are very helpful to teachers. I'm looking at this as an alternative if I've made it pretty clear where my position is here on personnel. So I'm trying to look for some alternatives and get some feeling from the people that would be doing it. What your feeling is.
I think it's a great idea. From my perspective, my honest perspective, it's a great fallback plan. Ideally, it's a huge undertaking, and to have a teacher who's flat out, day in, day out, on the weekends, bringing home several bags. I think it would be a huge undertaking to rest on one teacher or even a team of teachers to take that undertaking. However, if that's sort of a fallback plan, I think it would be, I'd certainly be agreeable to it.
Well, again, my other, and again, I'm not an educator, but what appeals to me about it is that team would focus on your grade levels directly under your supervision versus us having a coordinator who shared with the whole district under the supervision of the SAU, which I'm not saying it's not shared fairly, but it's not your decision how much time you're getting from that person or what's happening, versus a team that would be working under you could lead. And I think pinpoint problems, quickly, versus, and no disrespect to coordinators, but they're dealing with multiple issues, whereas this would be more of a pinpointed kind of thing. So just throwing that out there, as an idea. Thank you.
When does this rollout begin? Does it begin next year, or?
It has already begun. We've been working on it the last 2 years. The expectation is that the Common Core will be fully implemented for next year, starting in September.
Starting in September. And so that's why you want to coordinate having a coordinator for next year.
We're looking for a teacher facilitator for the next 3 years. So the first year was implementation. The second year would be preparation for the assessment, which will take place in the spring of 15. And the final year would be to look at the first assessment and then make some decisions about what we need to change based upon our own data.
Well, I think, having been on committees or where there's some new rollout or some new plan, I kind of like Dave's idea about maybe having a committee of teachers or a group of teachers that get a stipend, for the rollout of the Common Core. I don't know, I've seen in the past where there's a person in charge, but really all they do is they go to the teachers, and the teachers are the experts in how to do it anyways. And I think they may have a little bit of more resources, but then they really put it on the teachers, and they say to the teachers, do this, or what should we do? I don't know. I think the teachers might be willing to do that for a stipend, and it wouldn't be a cost savings perhaps, but it would might work out better. I just think it's a good idea to look at. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree, Mike, about the cost savings because you don't pick up benefits. So even if you'd have to go pretty crazy on stipends to even make the salary, but you wouldn't have those benefits. Plus, I think you have that flexibility of running that time frame for whatever you need. Not a whole year or not 3 years. If it's done, you know, that could shut down.
Now, I'd like to get back to the stipended facilitator. You know, something is always better than nothing, but achieving excellence is what the goal is here. Expertise in the Common Core is what we're looking for, and to shepherd our teachers through the implementation. That expertise would be difficult to find multiple people and you know what? You guys work with me. You know how I operate. If what I'm saying is wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But I think we would be hard-pressed to find a cadre of people as opposed to one person for the district who truly has that expertise. It's that complex. I mean, otherwise it sounds great, but I just would worry about whether or not we're providing the professional development to the staff that we need and working with them and coaching them. And I don't know how a stipended person does that during the day if they're teaching. You know what I'm saying? You have to provide that service to teachers during the workday, to be in their classroom, to be modeling lessons, but they're already working. So I don't know how a stipend position would work that way.
Well, I'm just reacting to some things that I've heard that, you know, there's some teachers that don't like being told what to do and how to do it. They'd rather have ownership in what's going on, be part of the development of it, because they're the ones that are going to be left with it. And I'm not that educator, I'll say it for the third time, but it's a general principle that I think works. When somebody has ownership in something, they will exceed their expectations. You will get more efficiency out of them versus them feeling that they're pushed into a box and not able to use the education and the degree that they've achieved. So I look at this as an opportunity to challenge some of the teachers. And I don't mean to simplify elementary education, but I would think, you know, having a master's degree, you'd be looking for a challenge. You do have to go through the routine every day of teaching young children. So to have something challenging to deal with, I think would be good mental exercise for teachers. I think they'd welcome it, and I think we could create a community that would embrace Common Core instead of having to accept Common Core. And again, that's just my outside view, and I have talked to some teachers about it, and haven't found a teacher yet that thought that the coordinator model worked better than, you know, a teacher group or something. And possibly that's biased because they're teachers, I'm sure, but thought it was worth bringing here, and particularly if this doesn't go and there is a need, then I think, you know, we need to look at alternatives.
Unfortunately, in education, teachers are in a box and they all know it. They don't want to be there, but that's reality, and they know it's reality because they're mandated by what they need to teach, when they need to teach it, and when a kid needs to learn it. And having become friendly with many teachers, I would be hard-pressed to think of people who are going to jump out and say, I can do more, because they don't have time to go to the bathroom during the day, and they want to help their neighbor, but they have 25 kids in their room who have varying degrees of needs at any particular moment, and they have a new language arts program, and they're looking at summer piloting a math program because the nature of education changes. And I don't think I was completely clear on shifting from GLEs to Common Core standards and what that really meant. We're going to teach these children to think differently than they've ever thought before. And I don't pronounce the words right. They're going to go from rote learning, is that what it's called? Rote memorization, where they memorize facts, to actually taking the information, manipulating it, and creating products. That's a completely different way of being taught, but it's also a completely different way of teaching. And then when you add something else, because currently the teachers are on data teams, they're on bling teams, they're on this team, they're on that team. I have to say most of them, either if they leave at 4 o'clock, they're there at 6:30 in the morning. Like, our teachers are spread very, very thin, doing the very best job they can, and if we add, they need help. And I think someone who's an expert in Common Core could help them facilitate better. We're being mandated that this is what we need to do, and we need to provide these teachers the resources that they need.
But I think the teachers have to do this transition anyways, and they're going to have to do extra work regardless. I think being in both positions, having someone facilitate or having a group of teachers do some type of rollout or change. I guess it depends on if you get a facilitator that's really good. If you don't have someone, and I've seen ones that, again, put the work on the teachers anyways and really aren't effective in that position. So I guess if you had someone that was really good, they could do that and they could help the teachers and get things done. I just think, on the other hand, teachers are going to be making changes anyways. I think some of them, would love to have a stipend of $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever to try to get this rolled out. I did have one quick question. I might have missed it, but the facilitator that you would hire for is that a 1 or 2 year position and then it's over, or
Sunset clause.
3 year position and then
It's gone.
it's gone? Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Okay.
No, go ahead, I've already spoken.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, Mrs. Corcus, my interpretation of Common Core was slightly different than that. My understanding is we're going to a mastery program again, where we are going, particularly in math, where we're going to learn addition before we move on to subtraction and multiplication and so forth. So I guess I don't agree that we're going to do something that we've never done before. Teachers that I've talked to are kind of welcoming this because many of them felt that this was really the way it should have been taught. We've had a lot of people here that didn't really cling to everyday math, and I think they're welcoming this coming back. So I don't know that it's going to be all that different. But I'd also like to, I think we need to understand the other problem with a coordinator or facilitator, I see, is a chain of command. Because Dr. Littlefield directs our principals run the schools. A facilitator comes around the end and is directed directly by the SAU and doesn't work for the principal within the school. And to me, that's kind of a problem, to direct that energy within the school and to get done what you need to get done. So to me, I think a model where we have that coordination and facilitation operating right under the principal's guidance makes more sense, because the principal's there every day, he's running the school, he's keeping track of all the data that's going on there. So to me, I think and it also serves, I know that our teachers are stressed, but we're in a position here where I think we're all understanding the pain to hire anybody at this point, whichever way you think it is. So if it's going to be the reality that we can't, then we've got to look at some of these other issues and see, some of these other methods of doing it and see what works. And, I look at it as if we can stipend teachers and so forth, we're not taking on that cost. And that's a major concern.
We also have to consider, if we're going to stipend teachers, that when we pull a teacher out who's a Common Core facilitator that we then also have to pay a substitute to be in her class. Because she can't help teacher A. If she's teacher A, she can't go help B and C instruct in her class and facilitate her with different information if she has her own class. And I can tell you that that is very difficult, and I will use a scenario that I sit in very often, is when you have a special ed meeting and you pull out the resource room teacher and the classroom teacher. You have two substitutes sitting in the classroom with kids. They're not, our substitutes are phenomenal people. Many of them are licensed teachers, but it's not the same as your teacher teaching you.
Yeah, no, I just would ask the indulgence of the board just to clarify a couple of things, just so you understand how things work. I sit on top of this school district. My position does. Superintendent of schools, my position, not Phil, but my position. So everybody around this table works for me. And every teacher works for me. And if it's a facilitator, they work for me. Nobody works for the SAU. They work for Phil. And I do have to tell you, you hired me as your educational leader. And when I tell you that I think your stipended idea is well-intentioned. I respect the point of view, but it is unworkable. And it would not achieve what we need to achieve. You have to understand the breadth. This is not about whether a teacher at the Underhill that we talked to never wanted everyday math in the first place. This is really not what this is about. This is about a totally different curriculum and delivery model that we need some expertise in to implement. This is not about saying Susie Jones and Billy Smith are two good teachers at the Maple Street School. Let's make them coordinators. I mean, whatever they would be called. This is about identifying expertise in the implementation of the Common Core and making certain that teachers understand it and that they know what the curricular implications are and that they implement it and that they have ongoing support in the classroom during the day. So I'm telling you that this is a professional judgment. I'm not going to debate it. I'm right. I'm right because I got my doctorate to learn how to do that and other people didn't. It doesn't mean that's what you have to do. But I am telling you anything short of that. Remember how I started this off? I said we're a year behind not having the director of language arts. And that's the position I should be bringing to you. But it is much more cost effective to go to a teacher facilitator that works off the teaching contract rather than an administrative contract. But for us to think that we're going to farm this out to people, I sit on top of a school district, not on top of school buildings. So who's going to make certain that the 3 or 4 facilitators at Underhill are all on the same wavelength, bringing the same thing to the teachers, and that Underhill is in sync with Memorial, and Memorial is in sync with Colley, and all 3 of them are in sync with what the Common Core really says. That's what we have before us. I will tell you this, in the other school districts, and I sit on top of 2 others, I'm putting 1 facilitator per school, not 1 facilitator per district. So I've come to you with the most conservative approach that I could come to, and I would welcome the principals. If you think I'm off, and you think that we can achieve what we need to achieve, knowing what you know about Common Core, by doing it in a different way, then let's do it in that different way. But I think I do a disservice to the board if I accede to an idea that I really don't think will work,
Well, I trust your judgment in that respect. But I question, are there experts out there in this field? I mean, it's new to, do you think there are people out there that are good enough for the job?
great question, Mike. It is a great question. And our sense is that we probably would be able to identify one. It's not like we're gonna have dozens and dozens of people. But given the size of the staff that we have in the district and the interest that some people have, the majority of our teachers, and this is not a knock on teachers, because everything I've said to you tonight has been supportive of our staff. The majority of our teachers do not have the knowledge base to implement Common Core in September. Where do they get that from? You know, they don't get it through osmosis. There are a very few people that I call the omnivores in the organization that are interested, that they're go-getters, they go out and they get the expertise, but they're far and few between. I'm willing to bet that there is one, and there may be more than one, but as we've come up with that notion of this facilitator, Common Core facilitator, I've gone through the 3 districts and say, you know, do we have among everybody one person that knows more about it than we do? Because that's what we need. And I would never, Mike, just so you know, I would never hire a coordinator that was a bozo, you know, that wouldn't do the job or that was going to be mediocre. It would be somebody that would achieve excellence. Or we wouldn't fill it.
Thank you.
Well, I guess what I'm talking about here is options, because, you know, I'm not doubting what Dr. Littlefield says, but knowing the climate, it's very likely that we're going to be working without that person. And I don't mean to, I'm just saying, this is a very difficult climate to pull another person in. Well, actually, we're looking at 3. So I just was trying to get some information here about some other ideas while we're here talking, because I feel that we may be talking about this after the budget's been voted on and having to deal with it. So just wanted to get some ideas. Didn't mean to drag this down into that whole thing, but just to get some ideas on the table. So that's really all I had to